Welcome to the world united. Welcome to the world united.
Hello, how are you? I am so honored to be here. You know, in America, the traditional greeting is a handshake. In other nations, you know, sometimes they kiss on one cheek and then the other. And as you well know, in many nations, they put their hands slightly above their heart and they bend just a little bit forward. You know what that literally means? Literally, that means I bow to the divinity within you. And my sweet friends, today I bow to the divinity within each one of you. Thank you. I'd like to talk about agency and about belief. What is a belief? A belief is a sense of certainty about something. If you believe that you are a fine musician, you will always produce the results that validate that belief. On the other hand, it works the same way. If you don't believe, then you'll always produce the results that validate that belief. I remember when I learned this principle years and years ago. I was 27 years old. I'm 63 now, so it was a long time ago. I learned about belief. And I'd like to talk about two beliefs. The first one is I can create positive change in my life. And the second is I am joyful and confident. I'm hearing just a little bit of music. Are we okay with music going on? In my monitor, I'm hearing beautiful music. Is this, if we could maybe just not have the music coming out. I know, but I can hear the music. Thank you. So this very first belief, I can create positive change, begins with controlling your thoughts. And why do we want to control our thoughts? Because every word and every action begins with a thought. And if we don't control them, then we are then allowing our thoughts maybe to just take us wherever they will, pulling us backwards into the damaging beliefs of the past, crippling ourselves emotionally. On the other hand, we can direct our thoughts in positive ways and have control of those thoughts. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. I remember I was sitting in the front row of an audience when they quoted a wonderful president, an American president's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, and she said, "No one can offend me without my permission." Have you heard that quote? No one can offend me without my permission. And I remember as a 27-year-old, I thought, oh my goodness, this means that no one can, I can choose to be offended or not. I can choose whether or not to be angry. And if I can refuse to be offended, that means I can refuse to be angry. And I thought, this is the time to take control of my life and learn this eternal principle. And I've been working on it ever since. I love that I learned this message again. I relearned it this morning with our sweet speaker, Sivani, and she talked about the lotus flower thriving amidst the mud. And I thought, oh, that reminds me of a beautiful story of Viktor Frankl, and I thought I would share that with you. Do you know who Viktor Frankl was? Viktor Frankl was a Jewish psychiatrist that learned this powerful principle of choice in a horrendous way. And we still have the music going on through the monitors, my sweet friends. I still hear a song that's playing in this monitor. If we'd be kind enough just to not have the song coming through the monitor, that would be so nice. I'm trying to tune out this. My sweet friends, I'd like you to go with me, if you will, to the year 1945. Can you go with me there? In your imagination, 1945, This is Viktor Frankl, a Jewish psychiatrist, where he learned the principle of choice in a very dramatic and horrendous way. He was imprisoned in a concentration camp whose horror defies description. He had watched his family killed before his eyes. Thank you so much. And that Jewish psychiatrist had been tortured and beaten and stripped naked and starved and deprived of sleep. And yet he lived on, determined to somehow create meaning out of that horror. And as he was experiencing that hell on earth, he came to the realization that those guards could torture him, but he could respond to them however he chose. They could beat him, but they couldn't take away his live. They could strip him, but he could clothe himself in powers, mental powers beyond their reach. They could starve him, but he could feast on his dreams of the future. You see, Viktor Frankl imagined himself at the pulpit of a university teaching the next generation about the ultimate freedom, the freedom to choose how we respond to life. Those prison guards couldn't make Viktor Frankl angry. Think how our lives would change, my sweet friends, if we really understood this. We would no longer say, "You make me so angry," because we'd understand this is a choice. Viktor Frankl went on to write a beautiful book about this that I'd love, Man's Search for Meaning, Man's Search for Happiness. Think how our lives would change if we really embraced this principle and understood that we can respond to our lives, to our past, circumstances, no matter what is happening, we can respond however we choose. Now, I know that bad things happen to good people. But once we really understand this and we embrace this eternal principle of agency and choice, and we take responsibility for our thoughts and our words and our actions, and the results that are our lives, we'll begin achieving like we've never achieved before. I'd love to talk to you now about a wonderful story. You may have heard this. A young man who came to Socrates and he said, "Socrates, I want your wisdom. I want your knowledge. I want to know what you know." And Socrates said, "Very well, come with me." And he took him down to a nearby pond and he put his head under the water for a long time. And when he pulled him out, the young man was just gasping and he says, "Socrates, why did you do that?" And he said, "When your head was under the water, what did you want most in all the world?" "Air, I wanted air." And he said, "When you want wisdom as badly as you wanted air, you'll find a way to get it." And my sweet friends, I'd like to submit to you that when we want anything badly enough in our lives, including the will to create positive change in our lives, we'll find a way to get it. Let's talk now about that second belief. I can create my own joy and confidence. How many believe that happiness is a choice? Absolutely. Dale Carnegie said, happiness doesn't depend on outer conditions, it depends on inner conditions. It isn't what you have. It isn't what you have, or who you're with, or what you're doing that makes you happy or unhappy. It's what you think about it. He said, for example, two people could be in the same place at the same time, and one is miserable and one is happy. Why? Because of a different mental attitude. There was a massive study done at a university in California, Stanford University, in 1994. And the conclusion was this: happy people don't experience one success after another, and unhappy people one failure after another. Surveys show that happy and unhappy people tend to have had very similar life experiences. The difference is that the average unhappy person spends more than twice as much time thinking about unpleasant events in his life. Whereas the average happy person spends time seeking and relying upon information that brightens their personal outlook. Close quote. Absolutely. I'd like to suggest that there are several ways that we can create our own joy. And the first one, and I know that so many of you know these beautiful principles, and it's a loving reminder. That first principle is to live in gratitude, to pay attention to what we have, and to focus on that instead of what we don't have. I learned this in a wonderful way. At NATO headquarters, I was representing the United States at a conference there, and we were asked to share what we had done to strengthen the families in our nation the year before. And 45 women had explained what they had done, and then a beautiful woman who gratitude on a cellular level got up. She was from Mali in Africa. And she stood up and she said, "You know, I don't do all the things that you do in your countries." She said, "In my village, there are lean-tos and huts and caves, and there's open sewage that runs down the center of my village. And each morning, the women, we get up and we take our shovels, and we go from family to learn who had died the night before from AIDS, and then we bury them. If it's the second parent, then we take their children and raise them." And here's what she said: "I'm currently raising 25 children in my cave. No electricity, no plumbing." And that day, my DNA was rearranged as I understood a deeper level of gratitude. This woman was love. So kind, so gracious, so loving. The second way that we can create our own joy is to be what I call others-centered, to spread love. And I shared that wonderful quote by Mother Teresa about spreading love wherever you go. There are two things in her office in Calcutta. There was a picture of Christ, and then there was a saying that I would like to share with you. She said that she read this almost every day, and it helped her become who she was. It was written by a gentleman named Kent Keith, and it goes like this: "People are often unreasonable and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you're kind, people may accuse you of ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you're happy, people may be jealous. Be happy anyway. If you're honest, people may cheat you. Be honest anyway. The good you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give your best anyway. For you see, in the end, it's between you and God. It never was between you and anyway." Now, beautiful. I've studied Mother Teresa. I love Mother Teresa. The third way we can create our own joy and confidence is to be flexible and cheerful. You know, your ability to what we call just not sweat the small stuff is an indication of your strength of character. I have 7 children and 21 grandchildren, and tomorrow, we are going to bring another grandchild into the world, 10,000 miles from here. But on our wall for many years, my first 4 children were daughters, and we had this saying. It said, "Be pretty if you are, be wise if you can, but be cheerful if it kills you." And sometimes that's just what we need to do, is smile and be cheerful. Just that simple way to create your own joy. Another way to create your own joy is to be passionate about something. You can give love better from your overflow. So fill your cup with something that you love. When you wake up on a Tuesday morning, what is it, that thing that you love to do, that you can't wait to get at? Find that thing if you don't have it already. My wonderful organization that I'm part of, that I founded, the Women's Information Network, we serve and love the women in 152 countries. That's what I'm passionate about. Serving and loving and helping women and families worldwide. Another thing that you can do to create your own joy is to ignore your negative thoughts. The question isn't whether or not we're going to have negative thoughts. We're going to have them. The question is, what do you do with the ones that you have? And you only have two choices. You can either think more and more about them. You can let them go. I have one prop. This is a visual aid. So if you will kindly think of this flame as your negative thought. Oh dear. I didn't plan on the air conditioning. We blew it out. That's the point. Now we're going to visualize this. Now I just struck the match. Can you see that flame there? Nod your head and say, yes, we can see the flame. Yeah, okay, the flame is your negative thought. And it's getting closer and closer. I can let it hurt me or burn me and scar me and blister, or I can what? Yeah, what just happened? We can blow it out. We can let it go. Ignore those negative thoughts. Another way to create your own joy is to ask yourself good questions instead of bad questions. So many times we say, oh my gosh, why can't I remember names? Why do I always do that? Or we say something like, yep, I knew it. Just when things started to go well, this had to happen. So asking ourselves questions instead, like, what can I learn from this? What can I do to make myself feel happier right now? That's a great question. I'm going to say it again. What could I do to make myself feel happier right now? Let's repeat that. Are you ready? I'm going to say it one more time because maybe you weren't quite ready. This is going to help you lock this in. What could I do to make myself feel happier right now? It's a great question to ask yourself many times. Are you ready? Go. What could I do to make myself feel happier right now? That was good. For about 7 or 8 people tried it. Can we try all together? Is that all right? This is good. I'll give you an example of how you can use this later. What could I do to make myself feel happier right now? Ready? Go. What could I do to make myself feel happier right now? What are some of the ways, my friends? Focus on your blessings. Think about the many things that you have right now. Think about how you can help another person. All those ways. We have within us the ability to make the choices to create our own joy every minute of every day, my friends. Again, it all comes down to that question, how badly do we want to be joyful, loving, kind, giving people? My sweet friends, I wanted to share with you in closing a little bit about the WIN, and then I'll close with a story. The Women's Information Network, and I know that every man here has he loves. Could be his mother, but we all have someone in our lives. This wonderful organization exists to serve women and families worldwide through education, enlightenment, and entrepreneurship in an effort to eradicate illiteracy and poverty and hunger, and to increase the level of love, prosperity, and peace on earth. Last year, we put on 377 live events to serve the women of the world in 152 countries. That was last year. And now we're putting on 1,000 global women's summits, one in Mumbai at the end of March, and one in Delhi at the beginning of April. My sweet friends, I want you to know that there are some of us who are working very hard to strengthen the women and the families of the world, because there is an awakening of the women of the world that's more fast-moving and far-reaching than anything that's ever happened in history. And I invite every woman here to contact me and to let me know if you would like to participate. Nothing to do with money, has everything to do with love. My sweet friends, I'd like to close with a story about the Asian bamboo tree. This is a tree that only grows in Asia. How many have heard of the Asian bamboo tree? Oh, do you love this? This is a tree that has a very large seed, and it's hard. And you put it in the ground, and you cover it up, and you water it, and you make sure that it's being tended, that there aren't any weeds around it, it gets enough sunlight for a full year, and nothing happens. It doesn't break through the ground. And then you do that for another whole year, a second year, and then you do it for a third year, and nothing happens. You're watering it, and you're tending it, and you're caring for it, but nothing happens. And you do it for a fourth year, but then what happens, my friends who know this? What happens in the fifth year? The Asian bamboo tree breaks through the ground and grows to 90 feet the first month. Yes! Yes! Are our lives, are we sometimes like that Asian bamboo tree? Where sometimes we're searching and we're seeking our very, very best, and then we might come to some wonderful occasion like this, a conference, or we might meet a friend, or we might read a book, and something opens the mind of our understanding, opens up wider, and we start living wide awake. Wide awake. My dear friends, it is my hope and my prayer that you will live wide awake, that you will believe that you can overcome every obstacle in your life, that you can hurdle every barrier, that you can create any positive change you choose to create, that you can be more joyful and confident than you ever dreamed of being. I know this can happen, and as you believe it, you will become it. It is my hope and my prayer that you'll be blessed in your efforts to do so and to live joyful lives on purpose. Thank you, and God bless.